when my daughter-in-law Vanessa looked me straight in the eye and said with a cold smile, "Only important people are going to the wedding, Dorothy. You're not on the list." I felt my world collapse. I, who had raised David alone after his father died of cancer when he was only 8 years old. I, who had worked double shifts as a teacher to pay for his college. I, who had given him everything I had so he could become the successful architect he is today. I wasn't important enough to witness the most significant day of my only son's life. The cream-colored invitation I had been waiting for never arrived. But what arrived at my doorstep 3 days before the ceremony was something I never could have imagined, a truth that would shatter that perfect wedding into 1,000 pieces. My name is Dorothy Hayes. I'm 64 years old, a retired elementary school teacher, and for the past 6 years I've been a widow. My husband Michael died when David was just a boy, and from that day forward, my entire life became about giving my son the future his father would have wanted for him. I live in a modest 2-bedroom house in the suburbs of Philadelphia. The paint on the walls is peeling in some places, the furniture is the same I bought 20 years ago, and the carpet in the living room has stains from the countless times David spilled juice as a child. But it's my home. It's where I raised my son with love, sacrifice, and dignity. David met Vanessa 3 years ago at an art gallery opening. She was everything I wasn't. Tall, elegant, with perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive clothes, and that confidence that comes from never having worried about money. Her father owns a chain of luxury car dealerships, and her mother hosts charity galas where tickets cost more than my monthly pension. From the first time David brought her to my house, I saw the way she looked at everything. Her eyes scanned my simple living room, my modest kitchen, my thrift store dishes, and I could read her thoughts as clearly as if she had spoken them aloud. This is where he came from? But I tried. God knows I tried to welcome her into our family. "Mrs. Hayes," she would say with that professionally polite smile, never calling me Dorothy, much less Mom. "What a cozy home you have." Cozy. The word people use when they mean small and outdated. 6 months ago, David called me with the news. "Mom, I proposed. Vanessa said yes." My heart exploded with joy. My son, my baby, was getting married. I immediately started planning. I would wear the navy blue dress I had worn to my cousin's wedding. I would help with whatever they needed. Maybe I could make the wedding favors. I was good with crafts. I could save money and give them something meaningful as a gift. But the weeks passed, and the invitation never came. "David, honey," I asked during one of his increasingly rare phone calls, "have you decided on a date yet? I want to make sure I don't schedule anything that day." "Oh, Mom, we're still working out the details. Vanessa is handling everything. You know how these things are. Very complicated." More weeks passed. I saw posts on social media. Vanessa had created a wedding hashtag, Rarn Vanessa and David Forever. There were photos of venue visits, cake tastings, dress fittings. In one photo, Vanessa was surrounded by her bridesmaids, 6 gorgeous young women in matching robes, holding champagne glasses. In another, she was with her mother at what looked like a flower shop, surrounded by white roses and peonies. David appeared in many of the photos, always smiling, always by her side. But I wasn't in any of them. Not a single one mentioned me. I told myself I was being paranoid. Surely the invitation was just delayed in the mail. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, David came to visit. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I had made his favorite: fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and apple pie. The same meal I used to make every Sunday when he was growing up. We were eating in comfortable silence when I finally gathered the courage to ask. "David, sweetheart, I still haven't received my invitation." I wanted to ask, "What color is Vanessa wearing? I want to make sure my dress doesn't clash." He stopped eating. His fork froze halfway to his mouth, and he set it down slowly. He wouldn't look at me. "Mom, about that?" My heart started to race. I knew. Somehow, I already knew what he was going to say. "Vanessa and I, We've decided to keep the wedding very intimate, very small, just immediate family and close friends. I'm your immediate family, David. I'm your mother. I'm your only family. I know, Mom, but Vanessa's family is very traditional, very formal, and we both think, it might be better if... He couldn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Better if I'm not there. The words came out flat, emotionless. I was so shocked I couldn't even feel the pain yet. It's not like that, Mom. It's just, Vanessa wants everything to be perfect. She's been planning this for months. The venue, the guests, everything has to match a certain aesthetic. Aesthetic. I didn't fit their aesthetic. David, I raised you alone. I worked 2 jobs to send you to college. I sold your father's car to pay for your architecture textbooks. I know, Mom. He raised his voice for the first time, then immediately looked guilty. I know everything you did, and I'm grateful. But this is Vanessa's day. She's the bride. What she says goes. And what about what you say? Are you okay with your mother not being at your wedding? The silence that followed was more painful than any words could have been. I have to respect Vanessa's wishes, Mom. I love her. This is the woman I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. I can't start our marriage by going against what she wants. He left an hour later. The fried chicken got cold on the table. The apple pie sat untouched. I sat in my kitchen as the sun went down, staring at the walls covered with David's childhood drawings, his elementary school awards, the photo of him in his cap and gown at college graduation, with me standing proudly beside him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Where did I fail as a mother? How did my son become a man who could exclude his own mother from the most important day of his life? The next day I went to church. I needed guidance, comfort, something to make sense of this nightmare. After the service, several people asked me about David's wedding. Oh, Dorothy, you must be so excited. When is the big day? I heard it's going to be at the Ashford estate. How beautiful. Your son must be so handsome in a tuxedo. I bet you can't wait to see him at the altar. Each question was a knife to my heart. I smiled and gave vague answers, but inside I was dying. That's when I saw her, Vanessa's mother, Catherine, surrounded by her friends in their designer clothes and perfect hair. She was showing them something on her phone, and they were all laughing and commenting excitedly. I walked past them, and that's when I heard it. And we made sure to keep the guest list exclusive, Catherine was saying. No one who doesn't fit the image we want. You understand? This is going to be featured in Philadelphia Elite magazine. Every detail has to be perfect. What about David's mother? One of her friends asked. Catherine lowered her voice, but not enough. Oh, that woman. Between you and me, Vanessa was very clear. She didn't want David's humble origins on display. Can you imagine? She lives in that tiny house on Maple Street. She was a public school teacher. No. This wedding is about celebrating Vanessa and David's future, not his past. I stood there, frozen, as their laughter echoed in my ears. That's when it truly hit me. I wasn't just excluded from the wedding. I had been erased. Vanessa wasn't just marrying my son. She was rewriting his entire history, and in her version, I didn't exist. The days that followed were the darkest of my life. I moved through my house like a ghost, unable to eat, unable to sleep. The walls that used to bring me comfort, covered with memories of David growing up, now felt like they were closing in on me. I called David 5 times. He didn't answer. I sent text messages. Please, can we talk? David, I just want to understand. I love you, son. Please don't do this. No response. On Tuesday, 3 days before the wedding, I decided I needed to try one last time. I drove to David and Vanessa's townhouse in the upscale neighborhood where they lived. It was a beautiful 3-story building with a perfect lawn, designer curtains in the windows, and 2 luxury cars parked in the driveway, both gifts from Vanessa's father. I rang the doorbell, my hands shaking. Vanessa opened the door. She was wearing yoga clothes that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, her hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail, her makeup flawless, even though it was only 10 a.m. Dorothy, not Mrs. Hayes, not even a greeting, just my name, said with the tone someone uses when they find an unwanted package on their doorstep. "Vanessa, please, I need to talk to David." "He's not here. His car is in the driveway. He's busy." We stared at each other. I saw no warmth in her blue eyes, no empathy, no recognition that I was a human being standing in front of her, heartbroken and desperate. "Vanessa, please, I'm begging you. Let me come to the wedding. I'll sit in the back. I won't talk to anyone. I just want to see my son get married." She sighed, as if I were a child asking for something unreasonable. "Dorothy, I'm going to be very clear with you because I think you need to hear this. This wedding is about me and David starting our new life together, a life that represents who we are now, not who he was before. Your presence would be uncomfortable for everyone." "Uncomfortable? I'm his mother." "You're a reminder of a life he's moved beyond. David is an architect now. He's successful. He's part of a different world, and in that world, appearances matter, connections matter, and I'm sorry, but you don't fit." The words hit me like physical blows. "David would never say these things," I whispered. "David agrees with me. He just doesn't have the courage to tell you himself." She started to close the door, then paused. "Oh, and Dorothy? Don't try to come to the wedding uninvited. Security has your photo. You won't get past the gates." The door closed in my face. I stood there on that perfect doorstep, in that perfect neighborhood, feeling more worthless than I had ever felt in my entire life. I drove home in a daze. When I got to my house, I sat in my car for an hour, unable to go inside. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, an elderly Asian woman who had lived next door for 20 years, came out and knocked on my window. "Dorothy, are you okay?" I wasn't okay. I would never be okay again. Mrs. Chen helped me inside and made me tea. I told her everything. She listened without judgment, her wrinkled hand holding mine. "That girl is cruel," she said simply. "And your son, he's lost his way. I don't know what to do. The wedding is in 3 days. I feel like I'm losing him forever." "Maybe," Mrs. Chen said quietly. "You need to let him go. Sometimes the people we love have to make their own mistakes, and sometimes the truth has a way of revealing itself when we least expect it." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what Mrs. Chen had said. The truth has a way of revealing itself. I was sitting in my living room, going through old photo albums, pictures of David as a baby, as a toddler, as a teenager. In every photo, he was smiling. In every photo, we looked happy together. That's when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Mrs. Hayes? Dorothy Hayes?" "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Marcus Webb. I was David's roommate in college. I don't know if he's mentioned me." David had mentioned Marcus many times. They had been best friends all through university, but I hadn't heard David talk about him in years. "Marcus, of course I remember you. How are you?" I'm calling because I need to tell you something. About the wedding." My heart started to race. "I was invited to the wedding," Marcus continued. "David and I reconnected a few months ago. But something happened yesterday that I think you need to know about." "What happened?" "I was at their townhouse, helping David with some last-minute things. Vanessa didn't know I was there. I was in David's home office. I heard her on the phone with someone. And Dorothy, the things she said." "What did she say?" Marcus took a deep breath. "She was talking to someone about the prenuptial agreement. She was laughing, saying how she had convinced David to sign something that would give her everything if they divorced. She said, and I quote, 'The fool is so desperate to please me, he'd sign away his own mother if I asked.' Oh wait, he basically already did." The room spun around me. "There's more," Marcus continued. She said she planned to deal with David's mother issue permanently after the wedding, that she would make sure you never saw David again, that she would convince him you were toxic and that he needed to cut all contact. Why are you telling me this? Because David is my friend, and because what she's doing is wrong. I tried to talk to him about it, but he's so wrapped up in her, he won't listen to anyone. I think he's scared of losing her. What can I do? I'm not even invited to the wedding. I have an idea, Marcus said, but it's risky, and it involves you coming to the wedding anyway. Marcus explained his plan. He had access to the wedding venue because he was part of the wedding party. David had asked him to be a groomsman. He could get me inside through a service entrance, and there was a small room behind the main hall where I could watch the ceremony without being seen. But why? I asked. Why just watch? What good will that do? Because, Marcus said carefully, I have proof. I recorded that phone conversation. I have copies of documents that show what Vanessa is really planning, but I need the right moment to reveal it, and that moment is during the ceremony itself. Marcus, I can't disrupt my son's wedding. Dorothy, if you don't do this, Vanessa will destroy him. She's not marrying him because she loves him. She's marrying him for his money, his success, his connections, and once she has control, she'll make sure you never see your son again. Is that what you want? I thought about David as a little boy, crying in my arms after his father died. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, all the love I had given. I thought about the man he had become. Successful, yes, but also lost, controlled, unable to even stand up for his own mother. Okay, I said, tell me what to do. The day of the wedding arrived, Saturday, June 15th. I woke up at 5 a.m., my stomach in knots. I put on the navy blue dress I had planned to wear, did my hair, and applied a little makeup. Looking in the mirror, I saw a woman who had been beaten down but wasn't broken yet. Marcus picked me up at 2 p.m. The ceremony was at 4 p.m. As we drove to the Ashford estate, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Are you sure about this? I asked him. No, he admitted, but I'm sure about what happens if we do nothing. The Ashford estate was breathtaking. It was a historic mansion with manicured gardens, a fountain, and a view of the countryside that looked like a painting. There were people everywhere, valets parking cars, workers carrying flower arrangements, catering staff in uniforms. Marcus parked in a back lot and led me through a service entrance. We walked through narrow corridors that staff used, past kitchens where people were preparing food, past storage rooms filled with extra chairs. Finally, we reached a small door. Marcus opened it, and I saw that it led to a tiny room, barely more than a closet, with a narrow window that looked directly out onto the main hall where the ceremony would take place. You'll be able to see everything from here, Marcus whispered. When the time comes, I'll signal you. That's when we reveal the truth. What signal? You'll know it when you see it. He left me there, alone in that tiny room. Through the window, I watched as the hall filled with guests. There must have been 200 people, all dressed in elegant clothes, all laughing and chatting, all celebrating a wedding that should have included me. The decorations were stunning. White roses everywhere, silk ribbons, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing soft music. It was a fairy tale wedding, and I was watching it from a closet. At exactly 4 p.m., the music changed. The wedding march began. Everyone stood. That's when I saw him, my David, my son, walking down the aisle to take his place at the altar. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, but also nervous. His hands were clasped tightly in front of him, and even from my hidden position, I could see he was pale. Then Vanessa appeared. She was breathtaking. Her dress was a masterpiece of lace and silk, probably worth more than my car. Her veil floated behind her like a cloud. She walked down the aisle on her father's arm, smiling that perfect smile, looking like every bride's dream come true. But I knew the truth now. I knew what she really was. The ceremony began. The officiant, an elderly man in formal robes, began the traditional words. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." I watched David's face. He was looking at Vanessa with something that looked like love, but also like fear. Like a man who knew he was making a mistake, but couldn't stop himself. The officiant continued. "Marriage is a sacred bond, built on truth, trust, and mutual respect." Truth, trust, respect. The three things this marriage lacked. "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever, hold your peace." This was the moment in movies where someone objects, but this wasn't a movie. This was real life, and in real life, no one speaks up. The silence stretched. The officiant was about to continue. That's when I saw Marcus. He was standing with the other groomsmen, and he turned to look directly at my window. He nodded. The signal. But I froze. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. How could I do this? How could I ruin my son's wedding? Then I saw something that changed everything. Vanessa was looking at her phone. She had hidden it in her bouquet, and while everyone's eyes were on the officiant, she was texting. And I could see her screen from my angle. The message she was typing. "Almost done. 2 more hours and his mother is out of the picture forever." She was laughing at me. Even now, even at the altar, she was celebrating my pain. That's when I found my voice. I burst through the door of the hidden room and walked straight into the main hall. I object. 200 heads turned to look at me. The string quartet stopped playing. The silence was absolute. "Mom?" David's voice was barely a whisper, his face pale with shock. Vanessa's expression transformed from surprise to fury in less than a second. "How did you get in here? Security." "Let her speak," said a voice. It was Vanessa's father, surprisingly. He was standing in the front row, and there was something in his expression. Curiosity, maybe even respect. I walked down the aisle, my legs shaking but my voice steady. "I'm sorry to interrupt. I know I wasn't invited. I know I don't fit the aesthetic. But I'm David's mother, and I have something everyone here needs to hear." "Mom, please don't do this," David said, his voice breaking. "I have to, son. Because if I don't, you're going to make the biggest mistake of your life." Marcus appeared beside me, holding a tablet. "Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery," he said, addressing Vanessa's parents. "I think you should hear this." He pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the silent hall, clear as crystal. "The fool is so desperate to please me, he'd sign away his own mother if I asked. Oh wait, he basically already did." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus continued. "This recording was made yesterday, but there's more." He swiped to a document on the screen. "This is the prenuptial agreement that Vanessa had David sign. Most people don't read the fine print. But Section 12, Paragraph 4, states that in the event of divorce, David forfeits not only his current assets, but also any future inheritance, including the trust fund his father left him." David's face went white. "What? You didn't read it, did you?" I asked softly. "You trusted her." Vanessa grabbed for the tablet, but Marcus pulled it away. "There's more," he said. Emails between Vanessa and her lawyer discussing how to manage David's mother's situation. Plans to obtain a restraining order using fabricated evidence of harassment. Documents prepared to have Dorothy declared an unfit influence on any future grandchildren. The crowd was murmuring now, voices rising in shock and disapproval. "These are lies!" Vanessa shouted. "He's making this up." "I can provide the original files," Marcus said calmly. "Time-stamped with metadata intact. I'm a software engineer. I know how to preserve evidence." Vanessa's mother stood up, her face red. "Vanessa Marie Montgomery, is this true?" For the first time, I saw Vanessa's mask crack. Her perfect composure shattered. "I did what I had to do," she screamed. "You think I wanted to marry someone whose mother lives in a shack? Someone whose father was just a factory worker who died of cancer? I upgraded him. I made him into someone worthy of our family. The silence that followed was deafening. David was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. You told me your family wanted me despite my background. You said you loved me for who I am. I loved you for who you could become, Vanessa shot back, for what you could give me. Access to the architectural circles, the connections, the prestige. But I wasn't going to drag your pathetic mother along with the package. That's enough. Vanessa's father's voice cut through the hall like a whip. Vanessa, we need to leave. Now. Daddy? Now. Catherine, Vanessa's mother, was crying. We raised you better than this. We taught you to respect people, not to... She couldn't finish, just shook her head in disgust. Vanessa looked around the hall, seeing the judgment in every face. Her bridesmaids were backing away from her. The guests were whispering, pulling out their phones. This disaster was about to be all over social media. This is all your fault, Vanessa screamed at me. You couldn't just stay away. You had to ruin everything. No, I said quietly. You ruined it yourself. All I did was tell the truth. Vanessa gathered her dress and ran down the aisle, her mother and father following. I heard the sound of a car engine starting, tires squealing as they drove away. The hall remained silent. Then David turned to me. Tears were streaming down his face. Mom, I don't know what to say. I walked to him and took his hands in mine. You don't have to say anything right now, but son, you need to understand something. I will always love you, but I will never again accept being treated as less than I am. I am your mother. I sacrificed everything for you. And while I don't expect you to spend your life repaying me, I do expect respect. I'm so sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I got lost. I wanted her to love me so badly that I forgot about the person who always did. I pulled him into my arms, and he cried like he hadn't cried since he was a little boy who had just lost his father. I've got you, I whispered. I've always got you. The wedding guests slowly dispersed, some offering words of support, others just eager to leave the scene of such dramatic chaos. Vanessa's family had prepaid for everything, so the venue staff looked confused about what to do with all the food and flowers. Marcus suggested we not let it go to waste. We could turn this into a celebration, he said, not of a wedding, but of truth, of freedom. And that's what we did. David changed out of his tuxedo. I helped him untie his tie, just like I used to help him with his school tie when he was young. We laughed and cried together. We invited everyone who wanted to stay, and surprisingly, about 50 people did. We ate the expensive catering food, drank the champagne that was supposed to toast a false marriage, and listened to the string quartet play cheerful music instead of wedding marches. Vanessa's father, surprisingly, was one of those who stayed. Mrs. Hayes, he said, approaching me with a glass of wine. I owe you an apology. I knew Vanessa could be ambitious, but I had no idea she was cruel. Her mother and I are horrified. You're not responsible for her choices. Perhaps not, but we enabled them. We taught her that image mattered more than character. We gave her everything she wanted without teaching her to value what she already had. He paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you spoke up. Better now than after they were married. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, David and I sat alone in the garden of the estate, watching the sun set. What do I do now, Mom? He asked. I feel like my whole life just fell apart. No, I said gently. Your life just began. You were living a lie, trying to be someone you're not. Now, you're free to be yourself again. I treated you terribly. Yes, you did. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Probably not. But you have it anyway, because that's what mothers do. We love you even when you don't deserve it. He leaned his head on my shoulder, just like he used to when he was small. I want to come home, Mom. Not forever, but for a while. I need to figure out who I really am. Your room is exactly as you left it. 6 months have passed since that dramatic day at the Ashford estate. The story became somewhat famous in our community. The wedding that wasn't, people called it. It even made the local news. David moved back home for 3 months. We spent that time rebuilding our relationship, talking about everything we had never talked about, his father's death, my struggles as a single mother, his fears and insecurities that made him vulnerable to someone like Vanessa. He went to therapy. So did I. We learned together how to set boundaries, how to communicate, how to love each other in healthy ways. Vanessa tried to sue David for emotional distress, but her lawyer dropped the case when Marcus provided all the evidence of her manipulation. I heard through the grapevine that she moved to New York and is already engaged to a stockbroker. I pray he's more careful than my son was. David eventually moved into his own apartment, but now we have dinner together every Sunday. Real dinners, where we talk about real things. He's dating someone new, a kind woman named Jennifer, who's a middle school teacher. She reminds me a little of myself at her age. Mom, David said last Sunday, Jennifer and I have been talking about the future. Nothing immediate, but when the time comes, when I get married again, I want you to know something. What's that? You'll have the seat of honor, front row, center, because you're the most important person in my life. You always were. I just forgot for a while. I smiled, tears in my eyes. I'd like that, son. Marcus became one of my closest friends. He visits often, and we laugh about how he engineered one of the most dramatic wedding interruptions in Philadelphia history. Mrs. Chen still lives next door. She tells everyone who will listen that she knew the truth would come out. Truth always does. As for me, I learned something important through all of this. You can't buy love, and you can't fake dignity. Vanessa had all the money in the world, but she had no character. I had very little money, but I had self-respect, and in the end, that's what saved both me and my son. Sometimes people ask me if I regret disrupting the wedding. The answer is no, not for a second, because at that altar the truth couldn't be hidden, and the truth set us all free. My name is Dorothy Hayes. I'm 64 years old, and I learned that the most important person in your life will always recognize your worth. Sometimes they just need a reminder. If you enjoyed my story, please like this video and subscribe to Wisdom and Whispers for more true stories of resilience and redemption. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in my situation? And remember, truth always finds its way to the light.